Okay, you got the front cover off, raised it up, put the crank back in, the bolt back in. You want to line up this gear, you find a little circle, and you want to line it up with that dot there, bottom of the tensioner. Okay, it's about what, 8 o'clock. Line them up, and then I'm gonna lower it back down, and then I'll put my cam holders in. And that one would be this one. Yep. This hole goes into the back cam. This one goes in, well, exhaust intake goes right on there on the back. It's on the end of the cam in the back. I'll put them on there. And I'll stuff a rag behind it. If you can't get the cams to fit in there, just get a 5/8 16mm wrench, go on a bolt and just wiggle them a little bit. Just jerk the cam around a little bit so it goes in here. Okay. And then once you got that done, you go up in there and you want to take, where's the tensioner at? You want to take this tensioner off. Take that tensioner off. 2 bolts, and there's a washer behind it. And then you want to take this guide off, and take this guide off. There's 2 bolts on that one here, one on top, and then you got another guide over here. It's got 2 bolts on. Take those 2 off, and then you want to take the chain off. Once you get the chain off, then we're gonna rotate it counterclockwise. So the yellow mark on the crank, you know, the dot on the crank lines up with that dot. See it? That's about 5 o'clock. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the back cam timing chain and tensioners and all that. Okay, here's your tensioner guide, timing chain, and the other right side guide. And the color markings, that's for going together. As long as you start it off with your crank dot aligned at your 8 o'clock position with the dot by the tensioner. And you put your cam holder in the back of the cams. I'll show you them when I do the front cams. Should be good to go there. Now what we need to do is turn the crank backwards. My engine's sitting up a little bit on the motor mounts. I can't get that socket in there. Okay. All right. Now you gotta go counterclockwise. Yep. Hopefully you can turn. That's why I had the spark plugs out. It makes it easier to turn so you don't be breaking that nut loose, bolt loose. Okay, it turned and it fell right into position. Okay, 5 o'clock. Dot on the crank gear and the dot on the oil pump. All right. Now we can start taking this side apart. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go put in my crank holders, not crank, cam holders. I'm gonna lower it down. I like putting those in. Okay, I got it in, the holder, cam holders. Goes in, a little stiffy. Goes in, but The intake cam needs to be turned a little bit so I can go on to the exhaust one. It's on there a little bit, but it's just not enough for me. So when I get the chain off, then I'll turn the cam and line it up better. And then I'll stuff a rag in there behind it to hold it on. See the back cam, got my holder in there, nice and flush, no gaps. That's what I want with this one. It's close, it's just not enough. So I get the chain off, then I'll push it in there and shove a rag behind it. And now what you can do is we're gonna go down below. I might not have to go down below. Maybe I just do it down here. Gotta go down below. I'll go down below and go from there. Okay. Gonna raise it up. Okay. Now I took the one chain off. That was from the bottom. It runs from this one and ran over to one over here and then down to the crank. I'm gonna take the tensioner off first. Don't forget about the gasket on the back. Take this guide off. Take your chain off. Loosen this one up and take this one out. All these bolts inside the engine, loosen them up with hand tools. Do not use impact or air ratchet, because air ratchet will round off the heads, because they're only torqued to like 19 foot-pounds, but when they get hot and baked in there, it takes more than that to break them loose. Okay, so now we got these done. Now we can do the other cam chain. So what you want to do is remove the tensioner. And the tensioner guide, and then the right side guide, and then remove the chain, and then remove this bolt and this gear. This one here, it goes into the oil pump, the bolts do. You don't want to take them out because it's set from the factory. You don't want the plate to move on the oil pump and then cause oil pump failure. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna remove this clip, push this one this way. COVID. Remove the clip, push it this way, and then you can remove the plastic off of it. And do the same thing with the new one and put it on there. Okay. And then if you can get the crank gear off, replace the crank gear now. So when you got everything off of there, it's a good time to clean all your gasket surfaces, because this stuff's not going to be in the way. The timing gears, chains, and guides. So clean it all up. Now would be a good time to drain your oil. After you get it all cleaned up, flush it out with a bunch of brake clean. And then dump some oil down inside there on top of the valve cover, inside, you know, inside up by the cam. So it will actually wash it out, you know, and it drains into the pan, and it washes the pan out and helps you clean all that crud out of the base of the engine that fell in there. Okay. And then when we go together, we'll be there. Now I'm gonna go up on top, and I'm gonna put my cam fixture holder in properly. All right, here we go. And with your hand tools, break them loose, all your bolts. Take your tensioner out, take your tensioner guide out, take your other side guide off, remove your gear. Hard to get the chain out with this in there because it sits out, fat end out. Take your chain off. And once I got my chain off, I come over here and my holder is pushed right back on there nicely. Okay? So that holds that one in, holds the back one in. So when I go together, I don't have to question where they're at. When all the painted links line up. On the new chain there, they got painted links, and we'll get to that when we get there. So now what you want to do is you got it all apart, you want to clean up your surfaces. Clean up your surfaces for the front cover. Do your front cover, your valve cover, your intake. Change your front seal. Clean up the area for your water pump. And if you want to replace your seals for your sensors and your solenoids, that's up to you. I usually don't, unless they were leaking. Okay. So I'll see you on the return side. Okay, time to clean the cover up and get the cover cleaned up. And make sure you get all your little plastic spacers out of all your bolt holes. I use a pick with a little bit of a curve on it, but it's bent, to pull them out. They'll fall out too, so whenever you lay it down on the ground, they might fall out onto there. Make sure you find them. If you don't find them, if you're cut short a couple, no big deal. Just don't stack them. Make sure they're not in the holes. I got all mine, so I got lucky. So you can use this pick with the bent end on it. Just scrape all the silicone out of all your grooves. The curved end works pretty good, you know. And you'll notice that some of these bolts had silicone on them. So what you want to do when you go back together is, you know, make sure they're clean and put some silicone back on them. Because you might have a small oil leak. Not a pressure leak, but just a leak. So don't forget to replace your front seal. Make sure you get the timing chain front cover gasket set. You know, it's just a gasket O-ring for the water pump on the front cover and the front seal. That's all mainly what you need. And for your sensors, clean out your sensor holes. And when you go back together, make sure you put some grease on the sensors and also on your solenoids when you push them back in. So I got my front cover clean. I'm going to put my new front seal in, set it aside, and then I'll work on my timing chain. I got all my timing chain components, you know, with the sets that they match. Okay. On this one is the one that goes on the oil pump. Goes on there like this. What you want to do is stick a screwdriver in there, pry it off. Comes right off. Boom. You crack it, break it, leave the other one on there. That's why you always separate that one first. Here's your cam chain. This one goes on the sprocket down below. These two go on your cam marks. There's dots on the teeth on the cam phasers. So I got one in there already. There's a dot in there. I marked it with my yellow paint. I marked across it, and it goes with the different in the color of the links. This one's dark link. Now there's a dot on this gear. On the teeth, there's a dot on that one, so I lined it up. And I lined it up with my darker chain link. Those are in there, perfect. And my holding fixture is still in there, which is good. So now I'll go down below and I'll put my other components on and go from there. before you go and stick this gear in there, you want to look through the hole and color that one. Okay? And when you're looking through that hole and you're looking at this link, they kind of all blend in the same color. So what you want to do is take your paint stick, marker paint, and go to that link that's colored and mark it yellow. So it stands out so you can see it through that hole. Otherwise you're kind of blind because, it's not like it's a clear shot to it, everything's in the way. So now you can look through there and you can see yellow. Well, instead of thinking, is that the colored chain or not the colored chain? I don't know. Okay, I'll put it on and then I'll show you. All right, get your chain in. Put your right chain guide in. Put your left chain tensioner guide in, but not the tensioner. And then weasel your gear in and line your mark up. Your hole, magnificent hole, and your colored link. And it looks pretty darn good. No mistake there. All right, get it in there, placed right in there. It should fit right in there. So then put your bolt in there. Some of these come with new bolts, some of them don't. If you gotta reuse your old bolt, got that plastic on there. So make sure you get that plastic with the bolt. Okay. I'll snug all the bolts up and then we'll get the torque specs. The old tensioner bolts and tensioners took these stupid little plastic things. But now the new tensioner doesn't have enough room for them to go in there. So when you thread your bolts in there, thread them in there just a little bit. Not only like one thread. If you get too many threads sticking out, and it's hard to get the tensioner to line up. I put this one in. Now I got the tensioner in there. It was hard to get it behind the tensioner. So what I did was I pried the arm out a little forward. Okay, watch. Pried it up a little forward so I can get that tensioner in there, because it has to sit inside the little groove that's on the tensioner piston and the tensioner guide. Okay, get them snugged up. Double check your marks. That one's pretty easy to see now, huh? So now I'll go up on top and I'll double check my, make sure my chain's lined up there. And then we'll torque them all. Lined up. Lined up. Okay. We'll go and we'll tighten everything up. And then we'll do the other chain. Smaller one. Okay, everything's lined up. Your marks are lined up. You want to torque your tensioner bolts to 18 foot-pounds. Tensioner guide bolt, 18 foot-pounds. And the right side guides, 18 foot-pounds. And this lower little sprocket down here, 43 foot-pounds. Once you got them all torqued and everything looks good, then you can pull out your tensioner pin. Okay, pulled out. Now what I'm gonna do is go over here and pull out my guide. Okay, because I don't want to be up in the air and go, oh man, I gotta lower it back down so I can pull that thing out when I'm doing that other chain. Okay. You can do this one. You can put the lower sprocket in first, snug it up. Put your tensioner guide in second, and then put your right side guide in third, and then you can put the tensioner in. You can do it that way too. I did mine backwards. I installed my guides first, and then I put my gear in there. You can do it either way. Okay, we're gonna raise it up, put the other chain on. Got my new guide on there, my plastic. Okay, so then you want to stick on that left gear, snug it up, put the chain on, line your marks up. You got your mark on that one, and then your mark on this one. This one's got a little arrow. Go into my colored link, and then I got another arrow going to that colored link. Okay, so they're good. So now I squeeze this guide in, up through the bottom, plastic up underneath the, underneath. Push it over this way, and then it slides in there, and then flip it back down. Flip this side down. Get your bolts, line your bolts up, snug them up. If it all looks good, all your marks look good, you know. Then, remember to torque your tensioner bolts to 18, your guide bolts 18, and that one 43 foot-pounds. Okay, once they're all tight, you're happy with your settings, pull your pin, okay? Okay, now that you pulled your pin on your tensioner, you want to turn your crankshaft clockwise, and you want to line those marks up. So now you can do the back set of cams, your chain, okay? All right, now you're ready to put this chain in. Line up your mark. See, it says right. That's the right bank. Okay, and you come back here to that one. See, right R, right bank. All right, and I come over to this one. I turned it, remember? And what does that one say? It's got an L, left bank. Same thing with this one. That should say left bank. Where is it at? L, yep, left bank. Okay. Now we'll go down below and we'll hook it up down there. You see and mark the sprocket or the tooth on that sprocket. Okay. That hole and that tooth. Put some paint on it. And that's where you line up the color link. Alright. Got the cams on the top, on the chain lined up. Come down in here. Put your chain on that gear. Put the right guide on. Snug up the bolts. Make sure that markings stay true. Make sure they stay in there. If you have to and you can't get it in there, you can back the crank up a little bit and turn it with the crank. Just a little bit. So you get that tooth in there. And then you can put the left side tensioner guide on. snug it up the bolt, and then put your tensioner in there and snug up those bolts. When you put those tensioners in, make sure you don't, make sure that gasket doesn't fall out, okay? Cause a problem. She had a little piece sticking out of the gasket. I had that one, kept falling out on me. I had to double check it. So, see how that was sticking, see it behind there, the black piece? So make sure that gasket don't fall out. So you want to tighten those tensioner bolts, 18 foot-pounds. The guides bolts, 18 foot-pounds. And then the gear bolts, 43 foot-pounds. Double check your marks on the cams. Down here looks good. Yep. So then pull out your pin for your adjuster. Wipe off your area down here. Lower it back down. And wipe off the area on top. Wipe off your front cover. Front cover takes silicone, and there's a gasket that goes in here. Put that in there. And do all your surfaces with sealer. You know? Do all your little bolts sealer. Okay? And you're going to lower this down from the front them on top. Have a couple bolts ready, so when you place it in there, it's good to go. Make sure you got your new seal in. Make sure you take your crank bolt off. And I'm going to lower it down and I'm going to put the cover in. All right.